Hey, what's up everybody? In today's video, I'm going to show you how you can get started in Unreal Engine 4 if you're a complete beginner. The Unreal Engine is a massive program. It's designed for massive teams, right? These big AAA studios use the program. So you're not expected to learn and become an expert at every single thing in the engine. So if you're brand new to game dev, you don't have any experience in development or art or anything like that, I'm going to show you how you can get started as a complete beginner that just wants to get into the engine and start making stuff. Maybe you've been playing games all your life and you've always had this dream of making a game someday, but it just seemed like such a daunting task and you're not a programmer, you've never programmed anything. So how the heck do you get started? How do you dive in and just start making games? And that's what this video is all about. I've been talking to members of my community and we've been discussing things about what they wish they knew when they first opened Unreal Engine for the first time. And I got a lot of great feedback. So I'm going to make a video about this stuff. And I'm also going to be giving you my own opinions and what I think you should be working on as a complete beginner. So this is the Epic Games launcher here, and I'm sure you have this because if you've ever played Fortnite or anything like that, you have this launcher. So on the left side here, you have Unreal Engine here. So you just select that and you get these tabs up here. And you have to go to library and you have to add the engine version that you want to install on your computer. As you can see, I have 4 versions installed on my computer, plus a few more that are just the C++ source. You don't have to worry about that. And if you're brand new, then you're probably going to launch the latest version, which is 4.25. So I'm going to launch this, and this is what you're going to see the very first time you launch the engine. When you launch the Unreal Engine for the very first time, this is the window that's going to pop up. Up here, these are your recent projects, and if I click more, you can see all the different projects I have installed. I have a lot of projects. I think I'm using an entire terabyte of space worth of projects, but that's because I do a lot of tutorials and courses and things like that. But you're not going to have anything here, I'm pretty sure. So what you're going to want is to do games right here. So you click games, and now you're presented with all these different templates. The most popular templates are the first person template and the third person template. But the thing about these templates is that they're just templates. You can always change them around and make any template into whatever you want it to be. All right, so you have a twin stick shooter template. You have this flying template. And I thought they had a top down. They do. So, and then you have this top down template. But like I said, you could always take the third person template, move the camera to the top of the character, and now you have a top down template. So these are just starting points for you. If you want to do some sort of first person game, then just start with the first person template. But if you want to do a third person type of game, then just go with the third person template. And then if you have these other types of games you want to do, then by all means, just pick the one that sounds best for you. I'm going to do the third person template. So you click next and you're presented with this option here. So as a complete beginner, just keep your project as a blueprint project. You can always convert it to C++ at a later time. I'll show you how to do that. And then this stuff here, just keep this stuff as it is, okay? And then right here, you can select the folder of where you want it to be. I put all my projects in its own hard drive. So these are all different projects I have. And you can name your project here. And once you do that, you're ready to create your project. So just click Create Project and the project will open up for the first time ever. Okay, here we are, first time ever. I'm not sure exactly what your UI layout will look like, but generally it should look something like this. Your first time in the editor, it's like, what the heck is all this stuff? You have this character here. You have these blocks and stuff placed on the map. It's just a very simple level. Up at the top here, you have save current, modes, things like that. We're going to go over some of these things, but the first thing you want to do is open up this next to the play button. You can click play on selected viewport and it will just jump you in and you can now run around. So the templates come with a stock character that you can move and control and jump. All right, but that's all they give you. They don't really give you anything else to work with, but it's kind of cool being able to just open up a template and you can now move around. So there are other options here that I think are really important to go over. Number one, I like doing a new editor window. It just opens up a separate window. And if you ever open up like another class or you have like a blueprint open, which I know this might all sound confusing, it'll launch this separate window on its own anyway. So for the level here, I like to keep it on just playing in the viewport, because playing in the viewport is actually really nice. Because when you're playing in the viewport, what I like to do sometimes, and this might be a little bit advanced at this point, but when you're playing in the viewport like this, you can always press F8. And now I can actually move around and see what's going on in the level. And this is very important because down the road when you're making your games, you might have certain things going on that you can't see from your character's point of view. So you can just press F8, the game will keep running, and you can come over here and just see what like your AI is doing or something like that, right? And then all you would have to do is up here, you could just click possess again, and you're back in your character. Or you can press F8 again as well. So I think that's really a really cool feature. It makes testing really nice. So the next thing we have here is this build stuff here. I don't want to get too in depth with all of this, but generally this is how you would build lighting and do things like that. Then cinematics, this is for creating like cutscenes and things like that, but you would want to do a separate tutorial on the sequence editor here. Blueprints up here, this is how you can open the level blueprint. So if you want things to happen in your level, you can drive logic that way through the actual level blueprint. So this level is called third person example map. It's going to be its own level, right? So I can go new level here and I can create a default level like this. So here we are in a brand new fresh level. This is what it looks like. And if you click play, then you have your character again here. And that's because the levels by default are set to run with this third person character. Every single map you make is going to be its own level. As you can see, it says untitled. So if I go to save current, it's going to ask me to save the level. And what I recommend when you save levels is here in the content folder, you want to be at the very top. Just right click and do new folder, call it maps, and then save all your levels in the maps folder. So you can call this like, level 1 or whatever. So the other tabs we have up here is you have this marketplace tab, and I can make a whole entire video on just the marketplace, but we'll quickly go over it right now. So if I click this button, nothing's going to happen. All right, it's not going to open the marketplace for some reason. So what you actually have to do if you want to get to the marketplace is you have to open up the Epic Launcher down here. Just double click it and this will open up, and then the tab here you have marketplace. So this is where you can buy assets from creators. So if you're coming over from Unity, Unity has a massive marketplace, and so does Unreal Engine. And you're going to notice some of the same content here that you saw in Unity because those creators have made versions for Unity and for Unreal Engine. So most of these things cost money, but there are a lot of free assets you can use as well to get started. So that's what you're going to want to do. Just ignore the free stuff. Don't start paying for stuff yet. Come up here to the top where it says free, and you have 4 things you can do. So every month there's free content. So every month you're going to want to make sure you come through and get all of these things. Make sure you own them all. As you can see, I scooped them all up. So make sure you do that every single month at the very beginning. Like I think every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of the month, they launch a new set of free assets. So make sure you always grab those. And once you have them for life. So that's why it's important. Then you also have this permanently free collection. This is where you can get a bunch of free vegetation, for example, and then just a bunch of free other assets that are good for prototyping as well. This medieval dungeon, I love prototyping with this because it just gives you a nice set of meshes and things like that and levels to play around with. You have a lot of vegetation here. You have these special effects that are good for prototyping as well. So the permanently free collection, it's really important to get in here and just go through the pages, see what they got. This Ancient Treasures is really good. Animal Variety Pack. You got some weapons here you can use. Lots of grasses. This horror engine is a complete project that you can download and look at and learn from and see what they're doing. FPS weapons. So like I said, you're going to want to spend time in here looking at a bunch of these free assets. Now you also have the Megascans content. So if you didn't know, Epic bought Quixel and they now own Megascans. And so all of the Megascans assets are now free if you use the Unreal Engine. You can only use them in the Unreal Engine, but yeah, they're free now. So you can use all these different assets. They have like 4K textures and things like that. They're very high quality, but they also can be quite heavy on performance if you're not careful. So that's the Quixel Megascans. And then you have the Epic Games content here. These are also good to prototype with. They have several projects in here. These Infinity Blade assets are good for prototyping. And then it has all these Paragon characters, which if you don't know what Paragon is, it was a MOBA that Epic was making, but they shut it down so they could 100% focus on Fortnite, and they released all the characters and their animations and their special effects to the community for free. So it's amazing. There's some amazing characters in here. These are great for prototyping with. As always, in my opinion, there's no reason as a beginner to pay for characters when you can just download these Paragon characters and test with them, okay? So make sure you do it. You can see I've downloaded several over time, and I love prototyping with these. All of my courses on Udemy, I use these assets with, okay? So like I said, lots of characters here, and I'm still trying to scroll down here. Still more characters. And then Epic also has a few scenes that you can download, some special effects here, and all of these scenes come with assets. Remember, like it's everything you see here. So all this lava, you'll now have a lava material that you can use in your game. Water planes, you can use water. So as a beginner, I really recommend that you spend a lot of time going through the marketplace, really just understanding what you have for free to play with. I don't want you spending any money as a beginner. There's no reason to. Right now, you're really trying to just get comfortable with the engine and learn how it works and navigate the engine. All right, so let's say you've added a bunch of assets, you now own them. Where exactly do they go? Where are they now? So if you go up here in your library, you can now scroll down and you'll have this vault. This is where all your assets will be. All the assets that you've paid for or the free ones will all be here. So as you can see, yeah, I've spent a lot of money in this engine. I have a lot of assets here. So what you can do with these assets is, for example, this water planes, right? I was showing you that free asset water planes. You can add to project, and then you would find the name of your project and you will add it to it. This is the name of my project. I can add it to the project, and then it's going to download it. And once it's in the project, you can now open it up, check it out, things like that. Now, some assets that you get are going to require you to actually create a project to see them. It's kind of annoying, but it's just how it is because of the way that the creator has set it up. So for example, I have this trajectories part 1. If I want to see this asset and get access to it, I have to create a new project just for the asset. It's kind of annoying, but what you can do is you can still combine all of your assets into one project. You'll just have to first create a project, and then you'll be able to add it into another project, if that makes sense. It's kind of confusing, but I will show you how to do that because this is also a very important skill. So for example, let's say I add this military weapons dark, which this is free, by the way. You can go to add to project. Now, if a project doesn't show up here, that means the asset hasn't been updated to 4.25 yet, or to whatever version you have. So you have to click show all projects here. Then you can come down to your project, tutorial testing for me, and then here it says select version. So these assets haven't been updated since 4.21. So you have to click 4.21 and then add to project, and it will now add these weapons to my project. So once I've added these assets to my project, I can come up here to if you click this content button, it's going to open the content browser for you if you don't have it open. But now that I've added those assets, I can see them here. Here's water plane right here. And so I have access to a map to look it over. And then I added those guns as well, those weapons right here. So now I have all of these meshes here. So I can click the weapons folder here, and I have all these different weapons that I can use in my game. Now, let's say you have another project and you don't want to have to download another asset again. The way you would do this is if you have like this asset, for example, it's 3.1 gigabytes. Let's say I add it to my project and then I came here and I removed it because I don't want that 3.1 gigabytes sitting on my hard drive. So it would suck to have to re-download this and then add it to my new project. But if you already have it in another project, what you can do is you can come to the project. Like let's say I want to add these guns to another project. I'm making a new project or whatever. I can right click the folder here in the content browser. I can go to migrate and it's going to ask you to save stuff. And then here's all the assets it's going to migrate. So you just click OK. It's going to pop this window up and you find your new project. So let's say I want to move it to YouTube survival or whatever. I come to my new project and then I go to the content folder right here. And then that's it. Don't do anything else. Just stay here and then click select folder and it will add it. I actually already have this pack in this project. So this is not the best example, but what's important is that you come to the content folder and that's it. You don't go deeper than that. And then you click select folder and it will migrate all the assets over. Now I know we've spent all this time talking about the marketplace, but I really feel like it's just that important for you as a beginner. If you're new, understanding what you have available at your fingertips is going to make your journey into Unreal Engine just that much easier. Okay, that's why we're starting with the marketplace here. Another thing that's really important is this on sale tab. I like checking this almost every day just to see what stuff is on sale here, things that I might be interested in. And right now there's 505 assets that are currently on sale. Another important thing here is to just go to browse. And now you're browsing 12,203 assets. So on the right hand side here, you can click free. You can now see what assets are free that might not be in the free tab here. So just another area to go through and look what's currently available. And then you have these other buttons here. Maybe you want to just do $10 assets. I don't know. But the point is just get really comfortable with the marketplace here. And once you're comfortable with the marketplace, you understand how it works. It's going to make your life a whole lot easier. All right, now we're back in the engine here. And what I want to talk about now are these tabs over here. We have details and we have world settings. So up here in the world outliner, you have a bunch of standard assets that come with each level that you make. Things like this sphere reflection capture, the skylight, the sky sphere, player start. This is the starting location when you click play. Then you have the light source, which is the light in the level. If I click this eye, I can actually turn the light on and off. See, this is how you disable actors in the world. The floor can disable that. Atmospheric fog, things like that. So each object here in the world, when you click on it, you can notice the details panel changing down here. So if I click the light source, I get all these different options. I can make the light super bright or dark, whatever. And then let's say you do change it. Let's say you come up here and you do a bunch of changes and you forgot what it was at originally. If you click this yellow arrow, it's just going to reset it to its default setting. Here you have your rotation settings, your location, your scale. So this right here, the arrows here, this means that we're in the location transform setting. So we can move objects around like this, up and down. Now moving the light source doesn't do anything, but let's say I come up here to place actors. This is where I can start placing stuff in the level. I can add in a cube like this and just move it up and down, left to right. If I press E, it switches to rotation mode. So I can now start rotating objects. If I press R, it switches to scale mode. So now I can start scaling it up and down. You can choose which direction you want to scale things on, maybe on the Z axis or the Y, X, things like that. So getting comfortable at using, W to move up and down, E, R. Just get used to using those keys because you're going to be using them a lot when you're placing actors in the level. So now let's say I messed up all this rotation and scale and all that. I can just click these yellow buttons and now it's back to 0, 0 and back to normal. So that's how you would do that, but you don't have to add actors from this tab here. You can always come up to your content browser here. You can find, for example, let's say I want to add this character mesh into my level. I can always grab the mesh and holding down the mouse, I can just hover over the level and place it in. So this is how you would place objects in your level. Maybe I want this guy over here and just looking gigantic, so I'm going to scale him up. And now when I play, there's just this giant guy chilling in the corner. He's not animating or anything like that, but that's a lesson for another day. So that's just to show you how to place objects in the world. What's really important is getting used to the W, E, and the R shortcuts, because you're going to be doing a lot of scaling and moving and rotating and things like that. All right, and this is actually the tools for that up here. So you can see I'm in rotation mode. If I press W, I come into translation mode. If I press R, I'm now in scaling mode. And this little button here, it doesn't work for scaling, but for movement and rotation, this cycles between the world and local. So I can click this and you'll see there are differences. When I'm in world mode, no matter what object I select, the rotations look in the same way. See, the rotation's the same. But if I switch to object mode, now the rotation's different. So this one, when I move it, you can see how the rotation's changing, or the gizmo rather, it's just looking differently. I can change it back to world mode and now we're like this. So it's just another thing to keep in mind. This button here is for snapping. So if I click that, I'm now snapping at 10 units per movement. You can't really tell from there, but if I set to like 100 or 500, you now see it's starting to snap. So again, it's useful, and it's going to do that for any object right now. So if you want to get some precise rotation or movement or things like that, you want to turn off the snapping. And I believe rotation is currently snapping, so I can always click this to disable it, and now I can get some really precise rotation going on. And again, scaling does it as well. I can scale along a snap, as you can see, but if I turn it off, then I can get some really precise scaling. Okay, so that's just a quick little lesson about translation, rotation, scaling. Now, what's also important is up here on the left in the window here. You have your lit mode, you have your unlit mode, which just disables lighting, and it will just give you like basically what the texture looks like without lighting data. You have wireframe mode, detail lighting, reflections, a bunch of different things that are worth looking at. Player collision is actually really important because when you're building your level, you can see what things on your map actually have collision set up. So if I run over here, this guy didn't light up, but he does have collision enabled because if I click him, I can scroll down here in the details panel, and I can see that he has collision enabled here because his presets is called the physics actor. So this guy is a physics actor. And if I open up the presets here, you can see that it says he's blocking everything. So no matter what comes in contact with this object, it's going to block everything. So collision, a very important part. I could do an entire lesson on just collision alone and an entire tutorial. And then let's go back to the lit mode here. You can see that he's casting a shadow because the direction of the light is over here. But if I turn off cast shadow, then he'll stop casting shadows. So it's pretty self-explanatory, but this also becomes important because you might have objects that are small in your level and you don't want them casting shadows because it's just too small for the player to care about. And by disabling shadows, it will save on performance. So this is very important. We'll leave shadows on here because I want to show the light here, the sunlight. So if I start rotating it, you can see the shadow starting to change and the direction of the light is changing. So I can go up and down. This is really a high noon. If I come way down here, this is like almost a sunset. Now the sun actor doesn't update with that. You can see the sun disk is still over there. So to fix that, what I'm going to do is come to the world outliner. And I believe it's in the sky sphere here. And if I click refresh material, now the sun has updated. Okay, so this sky sphere is a free actor that comes with the engine. If you make, I'm going to save this really quick, but if you make a new level, let's say I come to empty level here. In this place actors tab, I can type in sky sphere and you'll get this BP sky sphere. This comes with the engine. I can actually just drag this into the level. And now I have this sky sphere actor in the world, but I don't have a sunlight. So I would have to add a directional light. So once I add a directional light, I can come back to the world outliner. I can click on the sky sphere. And where it says directional light actor, I want to select my directional light. And now it has refreshed and updated to the current rotation of the directional light. So I can rotate it back down like this, back to sunset. It hasn't updated, so I need to click the sky sphere again and then refresh. And there you go. So again, just a quick little tutorial on the sky sphere and the directional light. I believe it's important to cover this because in your games, when you make levels, you might be using these actors all the time if you're doing outdoor scenes. If you're doing an indoor scene, then this stuff probably won't apply to you, but this isn't a lighting tutorial. I'm just trying to go over the basics of the engine and help you understand and get comfortable with all these different settings here. You know, you have the intensity. Does it cast shadows or not? Let's go back to the previous level. I can go to recent levels here and then go to level 1. I'm not going to save this level here. What I can do now with the sunlight actor is I can disable shadows on it completely if I want. You can obviously disable it here with visible. You can add in light shafts. You won't really be able to tell too much. Maybe a little bit here. I don't know if you can see that, but it's adding a little bit of an effect here. Bloom, of course, self-explanatory. So now you really kind of see the effect going on here with bloom. I turn that off. And then there's some more stuff here that I don't want to get it into detail about. All right, the next thing to go over is this modes tab up here. So this is new with 4.25. If you have 4.24, you don't have this anymore. Instead, this is actually its own tab over here if you're using an older version of the engine. So this is new to 4.25. And basically, you can select what you want to do. So let's say we're making an outdoor world. We don't want to make an indoor type level, right? With meshes and stuff on the ground. We want a landscape with rolling hills, things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this floor. And then in the modes panel, I'm going to select landscape. And now it's got a landscape for me to select. I actually don't have a landscape material and I don't want to make this a landscape, video, but I'm just showing you quickly how to make a landscape. If you really want to have an outdoor world, a landscape, again, come to the marketplace. This month, free for the month, there is this Dead Hills landscape and this spring landscape. You can always add these to your project and you'll have this outdoor landscape with lighting and all that stuff set up. Okay, but really quickly, I will make this landscape here so you can click create. And actually, before I click create, let's say you have a heightmap file. Maybe you made it in World Machine or something like that, or you downloaded it. I don't know. Just go to import file. You can import a heightmap file from wherever you might have one. And I might have one on my desktop somewhere. If I can come to terrains here, I have a heightmap. So I'm going to add it. And as you can see, it's way down here, but you'll see it looks weird. But once I create it, when I click create or import rather, it's going to use this heightmap PNG file and create a terrain. Looks kind of weird, but this is just a terrain. And that is how you import heightmaps into your game. So now you have this landscape. What I've already noticed is that these actors that come with this level are way too high. They're floating in the air. If I click play, I'm going to fall for a while. So I'm just falling. Boom, now I finally hit the ground and I can run around. Obviously, that's not ideal. We're not trying to fly. So what we want to do is I want to come back up here. And let's say I get lost. Let's say I'm way over here and I can't find my player start. I'm like, hey, where's my player start? Where is it? I can't find it. What I can do is up here in modes, I need to go back to select mode. And then over in the world outliner, I can click on player start. And if I press the F key, it will take me right to it. So this is a very, very important shortcut. And now I can press W, I can move it down, or another shortcut is I can press the end key. It'll take it all the way to the ground. So I press the end key, then I press F, and now I'm at the player start. Okay? But I don't want to spawn on that hill, so I'm going to press the end key again, and now play, and now I'm on the floor. So those are some very important shortcuts, the F key and the N key. Let's say I want to bring all this stuff down here. I can select the cube, and then holding down Control, I can select the mannequin. And maybe I want to bring the skylight actor and the sphere reflection, the light source. I want to bring all this stuff down here. So I'm going to select all of those objects holding down Control, and then I'll press the N key, and they all come down. Now this little white line you see here, what's going on there? What is that? That is actually the sphere reflection capture. So Unreal Engine 4 uses a PBR setup. I know that might sound confusing, but I know that Unity doesn't. I think Unity uses a gloss setup or something like that. Not really sure, but Unreal Engine uses PBR, and you need sphere reflection captures to really bring out that color, or the lighting rather. And I can show you an example of this. If I come to this Paragon character here, I'm going to show you a little shortcut here. So let's say I'm looking for a character. I can't find the mesh. There's so many folders. It's like, oh my gosh, where is this character? I can't find him. What's going on? What I can do is I can come to the base folder, and up in filters, I can just select static mesh or skeletal mesh, for example. I'm going to turn them all off. So I've turned them all off. I can click on skeletal mesh, and I have the characters here. And then I can turn that off by clicking this button here. But let's say I want, particles. So now I can click particle system, and I have all these special effects that I have access to. But let's say I want materials maybe, then I have materials, and then maybe just level, so on and so forth. So it's a, whoops, I don't want that one. Bone compression settings. I don't even know where that came from. But anyway, this is how you would filter through objects, and you don't have to go diving into folders trying to find stuff that, you're just not sure. There's all these different folders here. How am I supposed to find all these characters, right? So these filters up here are really important. They're going to make your life a lot easier. You're going to be finding objects way quicker. So I'm showing you why we use reflection captures. So I'm just going to grab this guy here and bring him into the level. I forgot that this guy's scaled up. Let me delete him. So we have Greystone right here. In the spell reflection capture, this is what he looks like. If I move him out of it, look at how drastic his colors change. It's really ugly how much it changes. So if I play, you can see that he's just ugly. His colors aren't really working. The sword looks really whack. And that's because you need these sphere reflection capture actors to get the right color. Now, what you can do is I can grab the sphere here. I can actually bump up the size. I can just like bump this up massively if I wanted to. Right? I can set to like 16,000, and then maybe I can scale it up as well. So over here on the scale, I'm going to click this lock because I want it locked. When I set X to 5, I also want the Y and the Z to be set to 5 as well. But if I don't have the lock, then I can set this to 15 and these other ones don't get updated. So you want to keep the lock for scaling most of the time. Now, the sphere reflection capture is now massive. but it's still only working up to this line here. So if I drag this guy out to the line here, I believe it's going to stop. Yeah, so you can see that it stopped. What I can do now is I can go to build reflection captures, and it will rebuild it. And now I actually get the real lighting depending on the direction of the sun and things like that. Now I scaled it up massively, but the scaling actually didn't update the size of it. So I'm just going to set the scale back to its default, which is 1. And it looks like this is the max size I can get for the reflection capture. So then what you'll need to do is holding down the Alt key, you can now duplicate it and move it around. And this is basically how it works. So you just have a bunch of reflection captures in your level. If you open up any sample levels from the marketplace, you'll see a whole bunch of reflection captures everywhere. You don't have to worry about performance because it's all handled like at the level creation. They're not dynamic. So you can have as many of these in the level as you want. I've added 8 reflection captures to the level now because I was duplicating them. So now I need to go to build and rebuild. Okay. So he does look super bright, but again, I think it's because of the direction of the light source here. We're basically at sunset, if I recall. Yes. So I'm actually going to grab the character over here. I'm going to move him back to the light. And let's update the direction of the sun now. So bring him up high. And now the character doesn't look as crazy, but he was gold before because of the direction of the sun. Let's just rebuild the reflection captures here. You can see his color updates. Another thing that's important is that right now this level is a massive level. If I was to build the lighting, as I showed earlier, you would build lighting here. If I was to build lighting on a huge outdoor world like this, it would take forever. I would need a super beefy computer. So when it comes to outdoor worlds like this, what you're going to do with your light source here, your sun, you're going to want it to be movable. You don't want to do stationary. You want to do movable, and you want to just have a full dynamic lighting setup. It's not as pretty as having baked lighting, but you might be able to get away with keeping it on stationary. But if you want to have like a day-night system, it has to be movable. The sun has to be able to move and update in real time. And so that's what you would do for these big outdoor worlds. Now, if your sun is never going to move, if you're playing a game like Hell Let Loose, I believe they do stationary because the sun doesn't move. There is no sunset or anything like that. So you can do stationary and then build lighting in certain areas. And also if you hover over it, it will show what it does. Okay. So that's a little bit about lighting and landscapes and reflection actors, things like that. So at this point, I hope you're not super confused, and maybe if I'm lucky, you're actually getting sort of comfortable with just moving actors around and doing things like that. There's a lot more to this landscape tab here. I can sculpt and build hills and do things like that. But again, I don't want this to be a landscape tutorial. I'm just trying to get you comfortable in the engine. Each one of these tabs right here, foliage, brush editing, mesh painting, things like that. These could all be their own separate videos that you could spend 20 minutes on. But I just want to quickly go through the engine and get you at least somewhat comfortable, able to navigate around, because that's what's really important. So this content browser, this is obviously where you're going to find everything. But let's say you accidentally close it. You can either click this to bring it back up, or in the Windows panel here, or maybe it's not there anymore. Oh yeah, there it is, content browser right here. You could even have 4 separate tabs. What I like to do, since I have a dual monitor setup, is I will actually drag this tab off. So now it's a separate window, and I will put this on my other monitor, and I can just drag in assets and stuff like that. But most of the time you can just leave it up here and you're fine. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually outside of the engine. These are things that are Really important details that beginners need to know about. So if you come to the content browser here, if I right click this main folder, I can actually browse to it right here. I can go to show in Explorer. It will take me to this window here. It will just pop up a new Explorer window. And I'm now in that main folder. What I really want to emphasize here is that you do not, I repeat, you do not want to be moving folders or assets around or deleting assets from this folder, from the Explorer window. So for example, I would not want to come into mannequin here and then move this to like another folder. Like you do not want to do that. That's not how you move assets around. You'll break your projects if you do that. So do not do it. This SK mannequin is right here. That's character mannequin mesh. If I want to move this guy to another folder, I do it from here. I do it from inside the project. I'll grab the mesh and maybe I want to move it to this rain folder. I'll drop it and I can either copy it there or move here. Okay, this is how you move things around. You do not want to be moving UAsset files around. This is also the same with deleting. You don't want to be deleting UAsset files unless the only reason I would ever delete a UAsset folder from the Explorer window is if I wanted to delete the whole folder. So for example, in this project, I added that military weapons pack earlier. I don't really need it. I haven't used it in my game at all. It's just sitting here taking up space, so I can delete it and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But this Greystone folder, it would be a bad idea to delete it because some of the assets in this folder are currently in this level, right? This guy is right here. If I delete that folder, it's going to create this situation where this level is looking for this character. It doesn't know where it is. And it's going to, every time you open the engine, you might get these errors that pop up saying, hey, we can't find this character. Where is it? So if you want to delete it, the way to do it is number one, you would delete it out of the level first. And then now you could probably come here and delete it if it's not being used anywhere. But the other proper way to delete things is you would browse to the asset that you want to delete. So let's say I just want to delete this guy, get him off the project. You would right click, go to delete, and then it's going to bring up this window. And this is basically a warning. It's saying like, hey, that asset is being used several times in your project. Are you really sure you want to delete it? Like if you force delete it, like you might get like bugs and issues and stuff like that. So what you want to do is if you're ever going to delete an asset, you want to make sure that you go wherever it's being used and make sure it's no longer being used in that asset. So this is a little bit advanced, but it's just really important. The main lesson here is to not be deleting assets from the content folder in Explorer. Make sure you're doing your moving and deleting here. If you remember, I actually deleted this folder, so that's why it looks like this now. These things are actually not in the level or not in my project, so it just looks a little buggy. I'm pretty sure if I close the project and restart it, this folder will be gone. But again, this is an example why you don't want to really delete things in the Explorer because now it's just kind of, we got some bugs going on. It's just buggy. Like all these textures really aren't here, so it's not showing anything. Same with the materials here. These things are all blank looking. So the proper way to delete is by just going to the asset and then right clicking and deleting it. See, I can't actually right click it because this folder doesn't exist anymore. If I restart the project, this folder will probably be gone. This is just a quick lesson about deleting and moving assets. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about are the base classes that make up an Unreal Engine game. And I'm actually going to go back to our third-person example map. This is the default map that comes when you open up the project for the first time. And so what I think is really important is understanding folder structure here. So everyone kind of has their own way that they like to organize their assets. I like to make a folder called _main because it puts it at the top. But some people will make a folder called game and then they'll put all their main classes in there. For me, I like to do main. So as an example, let's say we want to make our own character, right? This guy's cool and all, but we want our own character. So In the content browser here, I'm going to right click, and now I can click Create Basic Asset Blueprint Class, okay? So you have level here, you have materials, you have particles, you also have Blueprint Class. So Blueprint Class is really what's going to make up the bulk of your game. This character right here is a Blueprint Class. If I select him in the World Outliner here, I can actually click Edit Third Person Character, and it will open this character's blueprint here. So again, this is a beginner's video. I'm not going to go into what all this stuff is going on, but just to give you an idea, this is its movement. This is how we move with the keyboard right here. And this is how we look around with the mouse. So like I said, I don't want to get into all of it, but this template, it comes with this code here. So if you want to make your own character, you can always just take this code and move it to a new character if you want. What I suggest doing though is that if you come to the viewport here, you can always replace this little mesh guy here. You can come over here to the left side. You have all these different components here. You can click mesh here and we can actually replace this guy with another character. But again, I'm not going to get into that because you would also have to create an animation blueprint and do things like that. That could be its own separate video. But what's important is just understanding how to create classes. So in the main folder here, let's say I want to create a blueprint class. What you see here is actor, pawn, character, and so on. These classes that you see here will make up the bulk of your game. These are the most used classes in any game. So you have things like an actor. What exactly is an actor? What's that mean? Well, an actor is basically, as it says here, it's just any object that can be placed in the world. So this mesh right here, this is considered an actor. Everything in here is an actor. Even this is an actor. This light source is an actor. This character is an actor. So when I go to make a blueprint class, it's kind of like, think of this as the top of the hierarchy here. It starts with actor, then we have pawn, but as you can see here, a pawn is an actor, so a pawn comes from this actor class. And then you have character, which comes from pawn. So it's kind of like it's going down the line here. Now it's different with PlayerController, but PlayerController is still considered an actor. But the Gamemode base, I don't think that's considered an actor. That's different. So what you can do is you can hover over each one and it's going to give you more information about what it does. So the Gamemode base is really important. This is something that I want to talk about because if you come to the third person example map, the sample map here, if you click on world settings, this tab, it's going to ask you for a game mode override. So you can actually make your own game mode. I could come in here, go to blueprint class. I can click game mode base. And now I can type in like GM underscore for game mode, right? Or some people like to do BP underscore for blueprint. And you can type in like my game mode. And what I can do with this game mode class is I can actually override the level. So I can come into the world settings and then I can actually find my BP underscore game mode. But a good shortcut that you really want to be using all the time is if you come to the content browser, you can select your object here and then you can press this arrow and it will plug it in. But if I delete the character, let's say I grab this third person character and delete him, when I play, I'm not a character anymore. It's like, what happened? What am I? Well, let's press F8 and see. I'm now this guy right here. And this is called a default pawn, as you can see here. And it's like, well, why is it spawning a default pawn? Why isn't it spawning that character anymore? Well, if you look at our game mode override here, so I made this new game mode and where it says default pawn class, it says default pawn. So that's why we actually spawned in as the default pawn. So I'm gonna hit the stop button. And how do we fix this? Like, how do we make it so we spawn as that character again? Well, if you remember the name of the character, it was called a third person character. If I click the drop down here, I can look for third person character, which is right here. Or another way is I can open up this BP game mode. And right here, I can set it in the classes here. I can set the default pawn class to be third person character. I can compile it and save it. And then I can actually just put this up here, or I can close it. And now in the map, it now says third person character. So when I play, I'm now the third person character. So any characters that you make in your game, you'll plug into the default pawn class. And this applies for anything here as well. You have your player controller class, your game state, player state. Again, these are just like the main classes in the game. So if I come over here to the content browser and go to blueprint class, we have characters. So I can make my own characters. I can make my own player controllers, actor components. These are really important as well. I'll talk about those in a little bit. And then scene component. I've never actually made a scene component. I've never had a use for this ever. And then down here, yours might be closed. So when you open this window, this might be closed, but you can actually expand this, and every class in the entire engine you'll find down here. So for example, we have actor. It's the same as right here. I can click this and it'll make an actor. But you can start to expand this and see all the different classes that are in this game. It's pretty crazy. But we can go down here and find pawn. So if I come all the way down, I'm scrolling down, there's pawn. I can click that. Now there's character. And you have more characters from here. You can see there's actually third person character. What this means is I can make another class based off of the third person character. It's basically a child of that actor. And I don't want to get into detail about it, but all it means is that anything we set up in the third person character will be used for any classes that we build off of it. So just imagine it as like a chain. You're just going down the chain, you're making classes based off of other classes, things like that. So kind of confusing, but again, it's important stuff. So here you have actor component, same thing as right here. It's just that Epic puts the important classes up here that you're going to be using. See, common classes. So, but again, you can come down here and make classes like animation notify state. I use that a lot. You can make a camera shake, damage types. We just keep coming down here. You can just look at all the different assets that are out there. Save game files, things like that. There's just so many, and you can always expand and look. So yeah, but most of the time you're going to be making actors and things like that. Like if you want a swinging door, for example, you'll start with an actor. Okay, so let's say we wanted to do a BP underscore door, right? So if we open this up, there's nothing in here. It's just an actor, right? It's an actor blueprint. There's nothing in here, but you can start to add components. You can add meshes to it. Maybe I want to add like a cube to it. So let's say I add a cube to this blueprint. I can then hit the compile button and save it. And now I can drag this BP door into the level. It's going to show up here in our world outliner. And this is now our, quote door, right? I don't have a door mesh, I believe I don't. But maybe you download some sort of free asset like that medieval dungeon that I was showing you in the marketplace. I know that probably has some doors, so you could add that here in the mesh right here. So instead of a cube, maybe I want a door or something. SM door. Oh, we do have a door. So it comes with a door, see? So now I have a door. Okay? So that's really what it is. When you come here and you go to blueprint class, if you're trying to make any objects that aren't characters or things like that, you'll always do actor, and then you start filling in here. You start adding in cubes or skeletal meshes, static meshes, whatever, particle systems, lights. We can even have a light in here. Let's just say we have a point light right here. See, it's not that bright. But as you can see, what's really cool is I can drag this window off, come to the map, and I can start moving this light, and it updates in the level. See? So maybe we wanted to make like a door. Like maybe we had like a wood post that could be like a lantern or something. We would add the wood post here for the mesh. Then we'll add like a light to it. And for this light here, let me make it big here. With light, we can like change the color. Maybe we want it to be like orange or something. You can see it updating in real time. And then when I compile it, it's going to be orange now. And another handy shortcut is, let's say you don't want to see all this, like these lines and stuff like that, just press the G key and it will hide everything. And you can now look as if you were playing the game. And then you can press G to, bring everything back. Okay, so again, these actor blueprint classes, this is what you'll be using to build things. And a lot of the templates that you download on the marketplace, you'll see that these creators use these blueprints all the time for making things in their level. So again, this is why I started with the marketplace in this video, because it's important to understand how to use it so you can open up free templates and free projects and stuff like that and just see how people are building things and to start getting an idea of how you can flesh out your world. So another blueprint class here is what's called the player controller. I really don't want you to focus too much on that, but the player controller can also be used to move characters around. In the third person character, it doesn't do that. It's not using a player controller class. It does have one, but it's just like a basic, simple one. And you can see the game mode is actually responsible for the player controller class, not the actual character. So the game mode is what is driving these classes in the current level that you're on. So every level that you make, you might have a different game mode. Maybe you have a type of level that's like a capture the flag level. So you'll have a capture the flag game mode. And then you have another level that's just like a death match, and it's just deathmatch game mode. And then you have another level that might be like a team deathmatch. So then you'll have a team deathmatch game mode. The game mode is a really important class, and you can also do functionality in it. I can open up this game mode here. I can come to the event graph. I wouldn't add any components. There's no point of adding a component to the game mode, because the game mode, it's not an actor. You don't bring it into the world. The game mode is just used here for the level. But again, in the event graph here, which I don't want to get into too much, but this is where you're going to be doing all your programming for your actors and your things like that. So for example, this begin play here, any actor or blueprint in your level, including this door, if I come to the event graph, it has a begin play here. If I do anything off of this, if I start adding nodes and functions and things like that, when we start to play the game, these things will get called right away because it's called begin play. So begin play gets fired every time we play the game. Okay, and to show you a quick example of that, in the game mode here, I'm just going to do a print string. And I can type something like the game has started, right? Compile it and save. Now when I play, in the left corner, it will say the game has started. See? So that's what this begin play event does. Now you can always make your own events, but again, this isn't a blueprint tutorial. That could be I have a ton of tutorials where I'm making cool things on my channel. Check those out. We're using blueprints and things like that. But if you really wanted to make your own event, you would type in custom here, and then you start to add in your own event, like, make it rain, and then do some like functionality that's going to make it rain in your level or something. But yeah, like I said, if you really want to get into Unreal Engine and using the engine and making cool things, definitely check out my tutorial series. I have this survival game tutorial series I'm doing. Plus, I just have other random tutorials. Just go through my channel, look at the different videos I have, and it will give you an idea of how to make things. And I think that's really important as a beginner. It's really important that you get into this habit of trying to just make things, okay? I know you might have some like ambitious goal of making some really big project that's just awesome and yada, 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 but it's really important for you to understand the fundamentals, understand how these things work up here, understand how to navigate around the engine, understand the shortcuts we were talking about. Like I can click this eye, make it disable. I can come over here into the outliner, and up here, I think I can create a folder. Yeah, so if I right click the top, I can create a folder, and maybe we'll just call this blueprints. And then I can drag this door into it. And so anything in this folder, if I turn off the folder, it's going to hide everything. This walkway here, if I hide this walkway folder, all those assets disappear. If I hide arena, they all disappear. So folders are really nice to use as well. Just structuring out your level design here and minimize things. I do this as well. I always put my lighting objects in a lighting folder. You can turn them all off at once. And yeah, you can just drag these things around and move them. You can also click and rename. Okay, so that's just a bit about classes and navigating around. Okay, so I think that's about to do it for this tutorial. It's pretty long, I know, but hopefully this video will help ease you into the engine. From here, what I think is really important is that you now take like some sort of course or tutorial series that's designed for beginners. Like I said, my survival game series tutorial on YouTube, it's free. You can go through that. That'll help you get things set up. But again, it's not super beginner because there are a lot of things that I didn't cover in this video that we'll be doing in there. We'll be doing a lot of blueprint programming. We'll be going over things like collision down here, setting up collision, you know, the mesh things in here. We'll be creating our own guns, things like that. And then I have a few courses on Udemy as well. But again, those aren't super beginner. I recommend as a complete beginner that you should really just be coming into the engine here, just messing around with things, adding random actors, you know, just come up here, click light. You can add point lights, you can add rec lights. A skylight you wouldn't add because you only need one of these per level. You can add spotlights, things like that. And maybe making your own blueprint actors. And then again, going through the marketplace, going through some of the templates they have, and just seeing how people are building out their projects. You don't want to like overload your brain. You don't want to be going through these projects that have these really complex characters. Like there's a lot of these survival templates out there and they just have like hundreds of functions and so much different blueprint code going on. And if you've never programmed in your life, you're going to be pretty confused trying to understand what's going on. And that's where like a really nice beginner in-depth course will help you out. And there's plenty of these beginner courses on Udemy that you can check out. My courses aren't entry level, so I recommend people to have at least 3 months of experience just messing around in Unreal Engine, because I think it's really important to understand what's going on in these blueprints, right? Because you have like the defaults here, all sorts of different settings going on here. And depending on the class, you're going to have different defaults in the class because it's defaults based on the class. So characters, for example, they have a lot of different defaults here, as you can see. These defaults here are different than this BP door. Some of them are the same, like the replication. This is for multiplayer, but characters also have more defaults. It has defaults for the pawn classes, character, camera, things like that. Okay, I think that's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps you get into the Unreal Engine, makes you excited to learn about it. There's tons of tutorials out there, documentation, things like that. Just try to read up and understand and learn as much as you can. It's a journey. It's a learning experience. I've been working in this engine for 5 years, and I feel like I'm still learning a ton of things. I didn't even talk about materials or particles and animation. There's just, you know, artificial intelligence. There's just so much stuff going on in this engine. So start to learn, get out there, but take it slow. Don't force yourself. Just try to enjoy the process. That's the most important thing. If you're trying to do too much too soon, you're going to get burned out. You're going to get frustrated. So you want to start really simple. Just find some tutorials where you're making really simple things and go from there. Okay, guys? So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button because I'm posting tutorials all the time and new videos and helpful videos and gaming content, things like that, guys. So again, thanks for watching and I will see you next time.